Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split podcast. I'm half of the hosting duo, Matt, joined as always by host and producer Josh. Plenty to talk about this week. UFC Austin is in the books. Excellent fight card. We're going to be discussing all of the excellent finishes, terrific finishes in the main event, co-main event, some excellent fights, standout performances from people like Davis and Figueiredo. Lots of discussion points. We're also going to be touching on MMA news and giving a brief look ahead to this weekend's action coming up, which is not the most exciting of cards, as we have 296 the weekend after, but still some fun fighters and some fun fights. Anthony Smith, fan and favorite for the show. He's fighting Cleo Roundtree. Should be good. We'll discuss that. Like, subscribe, comment, you know the drill. With that out the way, let's get into last week's action. Josh, what were your thoughts on the card overall before we get into the individual fights? One of the best cards I think we've had that's a fight night this year.
Yeah, great card. We were pretty hyped on it going into it. Lived up to it. I mean, how many decisions were there total? Was it just two? Three decisions. All three great fights. Excuse me. Great card. And I know that like you don't go like, oh, finishes mean it was a great card. There just really were some great finishes. Two back-to-back slam finishes.
That was insane.
Ridiculous.
Of two different types of submission attempts.
Yeah, the Zach Reese one in particular looked pretty bad.
That was the fully on the side of the head.
Yeah, that's the one where his head's off the side, quite dramatically.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, kind of fun, but not how I'd want to get knocked out.
No,
if you're asking.
And the fact that it happened two fights in a row.
Yeah.
Just on the same card would have still been insane. In a row. Before we discuss that, I think we should start with the main event. I thought this was going to be a closer, longer fight than it was. And I'm a little sad that it ended the way it did. But that out the way, Arman Tsarukyan is a bad man.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I thought because he was moving a lot laterally that, Benny wasn't really going to concede that much. Benny ended up being very in and out and wasn't taking his head off the center line. And in the end, it wasn't really that. It was just kind of getting backed up quite slowly that he ends up eating that knee, but just didn't look good from the start. Arman Tsarukyan.
It wasn't the knee.
No,
the knee misses, but Tsarukyan throws an immediate right hook afterwards. And he catches him with the right hook just as Beneil Dariush is standing up, having dodged the having kind of
anyway, getting him backed up into this position is still it wasn't how I thought Benny was going to go down. All credit to Tsarukyan, but you're right, he is a bad man.
Listen, I know that when Tom Aspinall beat Sergey Pavlovich, that fight was 69 seconds. And I said there was so much that you could draw from those 69 seconds to say why Tom Aspinall is fantastic. And there's a lot that you can draw in these 64 seconds about how good Arman Tsarukyan is. But it is kind of, there's so many things we just didn't get answered in terms of grappling, in terms of everything that we expect to see from an Arman Tsarukyan fight. But what we have learned is that he's got that in his locker. I don't think he really went for one takedown attempt.
No, he was just circling away nicely. To the point that it did frustrate Beneil. He was just very, very in and out. Head wasn't coming across at all. Just very hittable. I guess he wanted to kind of suck him into a bit of a flurry, try and scrap them a little bit. I suppose he anticipated Tsarukyan was going to level change. And I think he probably felt quite confident with sort of scrambling, or sprawling, or defending it immediately. I don't know. I guess you just didn't really see it coming,
I think
or he got old on us, or both,
well,
or he's hurt.
he has this
Make
odd
it
kind. He has this odd kind of style, but he does feel like he's hittable. If you look at the fights he's lost a lot of them by getting caught, and a lot of that's head on the center line. He has, to me at least, felt a little slow in the last two fights. They didn't last very long, so it's kind of hard to quantify that. But, the weight cuts don't seem to have been as good. Maybe there was a little bit of residual damage from the Charles Oliveira fight. And in reality, I think when you're that sluggish and slow with the stand-up, and you keep your head on the center line, you're going to be open to getting hit by things that you don't see coming. And fair play to Arman Tsarukyan, because throwing that right hand immediately after the knee, that's a nice little combination that that they've drilled in training camp, in the gym. Don't just go for the knee and then go for the right hand in case they block the knee or in case they get out the way. And
yeah,
he's got power. He drops him, finishes the fight, lands an extra shot just for good measure, and has reinstated himself as a real player in this top five. In fact, I'd argue he's the only guy that's one of these kind of up and coming new guys that has been able to kind of crack into that, sacred sort of top five territory. I know Dariush isn't really a top five guy, but he was kind of on that precipice. And now Tsarukyan's right there in that slot behind the other four.
Also, fresh, assuming he wasn't badly hurt in training camp and hiding it well. So he's available there for 300.
And definitely up for a fight, because
someone gets lured into a payday here.
Well, he's put himself in the conversation. I don't think you can put him ahead of Justin Gaethje or Charles Oliveira, because
no. But Mike Chandler, Conor McGregor's never going to happen. Has Chandler been rebooked? Smoke a lot of weed. I forget a lot of shit. Look, my point is, you got a little bit of heat right now. It's an impressive finish against the big name, huge scout. If it's going to be a big fight on a big cards, it's a lot easier to get someone to sign on a dotted line, I think.
Well, the names above him, let's assume he takes Dariush's place in the rankings. And let's assume that you take Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje out, because one of them's going to fight Makhachev and the other one's going to be pushing to fight Makhachev. That really only leaves Dustin Poirier. And I don't know if Dustin Poirier wants to take that fight. So
Dustin Poirier doesn't back down from any fight.
No, but it's got to be for the right motivation and it's got to be for the right money. And I don't know if Tsarukyan's going to generate
why have I heard
that.
his name thrown around somewhere?
There's rumors that Dustin Poirier has a fight, or that he's in talks about a fight, and it might be at 170, but it might be against a 55er at 170. Might be one of those ones. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know what. This is off topic, but I think Dustin Poirier is in a really weird spot where he's a big name. He's still ranked like number 2 or number 3 in the world in his weight class, but it does kind of feel like he's a million miles away from a title shot.
Yeah.
And you don't quite know what to do with him. He's not going to fight Michael Chandler again. Do you do Conor McGregor 4 and Dustin Poirier? I don't really have an interest in seeing that. It's a weird one with him. Tsarukyan, funnily enough, that whole weirdness, though, might end up working in his favor, because let's say that the next title fight is Charles Oliveira versus Makhachev. And let's say that they have some agreement with Justin Gaethje that he can kind of just fight the winner. Like he's doesn't need to do anything else. He's the BMF. They can do the him versus the champ. They get to do the promos with 2 belts and all that kind of stuff. But then who fights the winner of that fight? Because Volkanovski was being talked about as that spanner in the works. Excuse me. And he's kind of eliminated himself from lightweight competition and has his own business to take care of. So, hell, man, there's a world where Tsarukyan's next fight might be a title eliminator or might just be a title shot if he's willing to sit.
Yeah. But I think Michael Chandler's going spare.
He
UFC
wants that
300.
Conor fight, though.
I think it'll happen. I just don't think it'll happen. Also, you can always make it even if he loses.
True. It might be more sellable with him off a loss. We'll see. It's something to think about, though. But Tsarukyan's in the conversation, and he was ranked number 8 and very much outside of that conversation. And hell, worst comes to the worst, what about a Gamrot rematch?
Yeah, look. If he plays his cards right, he's pretty close to the title. I'm not saying he wouldn't take that fight, but I think he'd at least inquire about a bigger name on a big card. Or, he'd want to wait a little bit and just see if he gets injured, who pulls out what fights, keep himself ready. Who knows? I don't really know how much you can really push back with the UFC when they ask. And right now, they're probably looking at doing something because, his name's quite hot. I don't know if they're automatically going to be looking at something like a Gamrot rematch, but if they tell him you're going to do this, probably going to do it. I wouldn't hate it. And, that win certainly means that you kind of have to give him a title eliminator next, you'd think, all things being fair.
Let me just list some of the killers at lightweight. This is what a ridiculous division it is. You got Tsarukyan in the mix, Gamrot. I'm just going to list the young guys. Fiziev, who's obviously injured, but we know is an absolute motherfucker on the right day with room to grow. Benoit Saint-Denis, that guy's in the mix now. Absolutely fucking crazy. And here's another name for you, Jalen Turner. This is not a surprise because he did it. I know, good segue. He did exactly what we said on last week's episode he was going to do. Pretty much in exactly the same way we said he was going to do it. The only thing I was expecting was more of just like a perfect, Bobby Green falls end of show. And instead what we got was quite a brutal, cue the Simpsons meme, please stop, he's already dead. And there was a couple of moments where it did look like Bobby Green had faded away from this earth before that referee decided to stop, which has led to more memes of the referee's awkward, guilty face, and then how much money did this man have bet on Bobby Green to win tonight?
Yeah,
it's a possibility.
Let that go on.
It's a possibility.
Twice.
Yeah, there was like 2 different knockouts in it. And then there was a third, absolute final, he is now out. There is no motion. He's not responding to punches as they're hitting his skull. That was pretty brutal. The fight up until then, there was no question in my mind Bobby was losing that fight. As soon as he started that and the hands are just down here and he's trying to do all the, he got caught clean a couple of times where he was just it's like, bro, you just got a straight right hand, to your jaw, man. This is not.
He was smiling as he went fucking goose-legged. Just, goose-legged, turkey-legged.
Jalen Turner's a big problem, man. That length, that reach, grappling threat, if you do get on the inside, if he can keep the weight under control, and if he can get his stamina into a better state, which we didn't really see get tested, there's a lot of people he could beat. I do think if he was to ever rematch Dan Hooker, he'd win that fight a lot more easily. I think he's somebody that's going to learn a lot from that. He's not particularly old. For Bobby Green, it's just, we talked about it last week. I want to say it again. It's, he had a chance against Dan Hooker. That had a chance to really be like a great fight between two guys that are kind of, one's obviously a lot older, but the other one taking a lot of damage, maybe not in the prime of his career or getting outside of that kind of point, to have a winnable fight for both guys that gets them into another exciting fight. And now what we've got is, Bobby Green he's just going to be back in the mix, isn't he? Probably going to get his ranking taken away, or they'll drop him down to 15. And his next fight's probably going to be the up-and-coming guy that they want to give a shot at the rankings to.
Yeah, I mean, they could still do a Dan Hooker fight, but it's just lost the magic.
Especially the way that he lost as well.
Yeah.
It creates the perception of not closeness. It's not always easy. But fair play to Jalen Turner. He didn't have a paycheck and was coming off a loss a week and a half ago, and here he is. Pay bonus, performance bonus, and didn't get any deductions from missing weight. Perfect night. He's back on track. I was having a pause. I thought you were going to take over, but I can move on to the next thing.
I was going to, but then I was like, wait, hang on. Was the feature fight the guy finally making weight? Seems to have it all under control. Mattered for naught. Are we on to Kelvin Gastelum? No.
I thought Davison Figueiredo came first. Yeah. And again,
I'm really glad I didn't go with that right off the bat then.
Those same principles do apply, though, because you could argue that getting your weight under control is also getting your weight cut under control. And mental health is as important as physical health. So mentally understanding that you can't cut 33% of your body weight in order to fight at flyweight anymore at the age of 34 years old, I'm going to say that's that's good weight management. We're going to manage our weights by not cutting so much. And as it turns out, we're going to look really good at bantamweight. We're going to look at home. We're going to look fast. We're going to be throwing combinations. We're going to be technical. We're going to grapple.
Yeah, man. I said this. I did say.
I didn't think it was going to happen, dude.
Well, yeah, I didn't think it was a given. I definitely felt it was a possibility that he wasn't going to look to brawl in the same way. And fuck, man, like looks, fast, smart, and still very powerful. Rob Font's a great fighter. Rob Font really struggled there.
That was a rough night for Rob Font. And almost finished. Was it the third round where he got clipped and just really went kind of goose legs for a couple of seconds?
Yeah, but I think I think it might have been the second round as well. There were a few times in the fight where he was hurt.
He's got this weird. Rob Font's got the weirdest chin because he can get rocked quite easily, but once rocked, he's got this insane durability. It's like he's tough enough to hang in there to keep getting hit. That's not going to be good for your long-term mental health, but Davison Figueiredo could actually do something at bantamweight. And this is a division that has not got a lot of space for contenders. Like, there's a lot of young contenders. There's a lot of good contenders at bantamweight. Many of whom are very upset that Cheeto's the next title shot.
Well, I think he matches up interestingly against most of them.
Well, the jiu-jitsu is for real. And he can grapple quite effectively. if anything, more effectively, because I think it's easier for him being a bit shorter to get underneath guys and control them. He still seems to
he's
be
a very
very
strong
strong.
guy. He can leverage that shorter position quite well.
Yeah, he could. Well, listen, if he fights like he did against Rob Font, he could be a problem. And here's the fun thing: one of the fights that I'd look at and think that's a difficult one for you has just moved up to featherweight.
Yeah.
Former champ, Aljamain.
Yeah.
He's going up to
Yeah.
featherweight. That's official. And you know what? I think Davidson Figueroa, you look at certain guys, and we see a lot of people move up when they're champs or because they want to go straight to a title shot or whatever it is. There's something to a champ losing his belt, saying, I'm going to move up and I'm not going to go straight into a title shot. I'm just going to go into maybe 1 or 2 elimination fights and kind of earn my way to up there. And you look at Davison Figueiredo, like there's a lot of guys that would be a prima donna moving up, be like, I want to fight one guy and then I want a guaranteed title shot or whatever. I'm the former champ. And he's just moved up, fought Rob Font, said he's willing to fight anybody else that's there. Look at Aljamain Sterling. Like, I know he probably wants to fight Max Holloway, but he knows it's not going to be like an easy road to the featherweight title shot for him. He doesn't have that belt that's going to give him an automatic ticket. But it's like RDA when he moved up. It's like there's something to these real fighters where, you know, they'll do the hard road if they have to. Max Holloway, for example, 3 times fucking taking the hard road back to the title shot at featherweight.
Well, Figgy's in at 8.
It's not a bad spot.
Tsarukyan's in at 4.
Good spot for him. With Figueredo at 8 at bantamweight. I mean, really, maybe he fights Song Yadong. If Song Yadong wins on the weekend.
Yeah. There's also who's Sanhagen got a fight?
Isn't Sandhagen fighting Usman Nurmagomedov now eventually? Umar Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
I think they finally put that fight together. Because that was meant to be his opponent after, and then Rob Font stepped in.
Yeah.
And who else have you got? You still got Marab. You still got Cejudo. You still got some fun names. I think Song Yadong versus Davison Figueredo would be an awesome fight. Chris Gutierrez wins. I think him and Davidson would be a fun fight. Fun fights all around.
Although
Very
I
impressively.
think after that, Davison probably wants to look up.
I'd imagine
Time's
so.
not on his side, you know.
Also, we all know the person you don't want to fight. Then none of these guys are going to want to fight, and that's Marab. Peter Yan, dude. How good would Davidson versus Peter Yan be?
That'd be a lot of fun.
And
That
I
was
don't.
Sanhagen.
Could you imagine if they did that fight and Peter Yan lost and it's like 5 straight losses for what we consider to be one of the best fighters in the world? It's crazy, man. And look at Kelvin Gastelum, who we're about to talk to. That's a lesson, man. It's like you can look like you're unbeatable and then you can get on these horrific runs. And it's not always easily explainable.
Aye.
As Teddy Atlas always says, he says 70% of the fight business, of the fight sports is mental. Everyone thinks it's all physical, but it's mostly mental. That's the real difference maker between these guys where it's 3, 4, 5% difference in athleticism and technique and everything's maxed out. It's the confidence, it's the belief, it's all that other stuff.
It's being well fed, I guess.
Yeah.
Nah, look, Sean Brady's a tough specialist to go up against. I would have expected Gastelum to do better.
You don't think Gastelum looked a little slow
Yeah,
a little lethargic. It's not really. I
his
like.
final 5 fights or so at middleweight were a lot. They were a lot. I know he's quite young as an MMA fighter, but he got into the UFC quite young, I think like 21, 22. He's, put a lot of wear on. He's been in a lot of big fights. He's really fought the kind of Mount Rushmore of uh, middleweight UFC fighters. Belfort, Weidman, Adesanya, um, everyone really. Just yeah, fuck.
He boxes.
Maybe it was a bad fight, man. Maybe it's a bad fight. Maybe Gaslam can look really good at 170. That'd be a much funner world to live in.
He
I
just
don't know. How did
didn't.
you feel? Like, did you feel that was a bad fight? Do you feel like maybe he's done?
I don't know about done, but I think there's
Because it is a
never
tough fight, Sean Brady.
when guys move down. I don't know if they always factor in the speed difference. Middleweight, you are fighting on average guys that have the potential to be faster and certainly a little bit more agile than you do at 185. And I think sometimes there was a lot of fights where I think Gastelum kind of benefited from being the shorter, stockier kind of frame that can get on the inside of people. Wasn't fighting a lot of wrestlers, a lot of strikers in that weight class. I think these are all things that kind of benefited his style. But it's weird. It's just like the boxing stance just he just kind of looked like he was sparring. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that he's somebody that has very relaxed hands, but he was kind of sparring like he's doing a round of boxing against a guy where surely your mindset has to be trying to keep that front arm low, being ready for the takedown, not letting him get on the inside of you. And it just felt like more and more, first it was just walking him down and getting him into the clinch and taking him down. Then it was, oh, I can just take you down. And for a guy that's meant to be a high level wrestler, it was disappointing to see from Calvin Gastelum. I don't know if wrestling has just become one of those things where, he's fallen in love with his hands and he's just always assumes he's got the wrestling in his back pocket and it's been deteriorating.
No,
And I know,
I think you'd expect a King's MMA guy and a guy we've seen from Gaston who's smart in fights before. You'd expect him to try and at least threaten level changes, keep Sean Brady thinking and honest, keep him a bit more defensively minded. But yeah, I just really didn't look very good at all.
And listen, full credit to Sean Brady. He came in with a game plan. He looked massively improved from his last outing against Bilal Muhammad. Massively improved. And in many ways, that's a horror fight to book somebody in for their UFC, for their return to welterweight, I should say. And if you look at who they were originally going to book Kelvin Gastelum against, I kind of feel like that might have been Mercy because he was meant to be fighting Shavkat. If that version of Gastelum from Saturday night fought Shavkat, he would have been straight up fucking murdered. And I mean that because Gastelum has got a big head. He is not easy to knock out, which means that he would have been there to take all of that fucking damage. Sean Brady didn't really hurt Gastelum. He just threw him around and tired him out and then choked him out.
Yeah.
The Shavkat fight could have been a little nasty.
Well, snapped his shoulder.
Oh, he snapped his shoulder.
Or he was going to. I mean, he looked like he had a wrench pretty bad to get him to actually tap.
Yeah. And also, I don't know.
Dominated. You're right. Shavkat would have run through him.
Here's the problem with Gastelum. It's not just that he's taken a lot of damage. I think sometimes the sports have just kind of passed him by. Like there are a lot of injuries. There are a lot of periods of him not fighting and recovering from injuries and not training. And it just kind of feels like you wouldn't say this Gastelum that really age-wise should be in his prime right now is technically, physically, or in any way, shape, or form better than the Gastelum that fought Adesanya 5 years ago. And that's a problem. And the guy has had some wars, but he hasn't had a lot of fights in that 5-year period. And there's been a lot of bad performances. And Sean Brady is switched on. He's here to try and be the best in the world and be the champion. And I think Gastelum is kind of looking for at home. And listen, here's the reality as well. If you're really good enough, unless the weight cut is just destroying you, or you are just horrifically outsized in the competition that you're fighting in, like the really good fighters still get to that top echelon level. Maybe they don't become the champion, but they still get to that top echelon level, even if they're giving up a bit of size or a bit of this or a bit of that. You know what I mean? It's like, we never see a guy go down and look just absolutely fantastic. It doesn't happen very often. I mean, I know Michael Bisping went from light heavyweight to middleweight and became the middleweight champion, but you know, for a lot of guys, if you're having to go down and you weren't having success above, it doesn't really seem to lead to loads more success, in my opinion.
Nah.
I just think
Jose
Aldo,
Aldo
TJ
had Jose Aldo had some success, but obviously had more success at 45.
Is Kevin Holland any better at welterweight than he was at middleweight? Still loses to the same caliber of people, still has the same issues. RDA, you know, really at 170 and 155, just not quite. And, you know, and some of that might be the weight classes and how they do it, but you know what I mean? There was something that prevented him at a certain point post him being the champion from being able to eclipse a certain level in either weight class. But he moved around a lot trying to look for a home or figure it out.
Yeah, I can't really think of a lot of athletes. Andrade doesn't really count because the lighter weight classes didn't exist at first.
Yeah, and then she didn't have 125 to drop to when she dropped down to 115. And let's be honest, that win against Rose was a bit of a fluke. I love Andrade.
Hey, we're not. It's not how it.
Okay.
Like there's two that I can think of champions that dropped down from another weight class. I think we got both of them.
Yeah, obviously Bisping. Well, also the thing
both count, and they both count.
They do both count. The thing I'd say with Bisping is the light heavyweight thing. It was a lot earlier in the sport, and he wasn't coming from a culture of people cutting weight. Again, the division didn't exist. You can't put that out there. That's not a reasonable comparison. So anyway.
Hey, technically I'm correct.
Tough road for Gastelum, man. Big Gastelum fan. Don't know where he goes from here. Sean Brady goes up. And he needed that because he's had to eat a lot of shit for a good part of 14 months after that Bilal Muhammad fight. And he's not had the opportunity to do that and show people that that's who he is.
It was a great performance. Good for him, man. Man, like, so Shavkat's fighting Wonderboy.
Yep.
So like maybe Brady could get the loser of that fight, but you know, ideally, who is there moving forward?
Gilbert Burns.
You reckon they can get Burns to take that?
Burns will fight anyone. Coming off the Bilal fight, I don't think he's got that much leverage. And he hasn't got time to waste.
These are all good points, actually. I like this.
Yeah, I'm good for them every now and again.
I like playing fantasy matchmaker. I hope this one comes off.
Here's another good point. Clay Guida should be allowed to fight till he's 50.
Yeah. Let him just keep burping away. My God.
Here's the crazy thing about him. The UFC's level has obviously increased dramatically since he started. So obviously the level's done this. But I can't tell you that Clay Guida has really done this that much. At the age of 41, he's still Clay Guida. He's still doing the same
guy that beat Anthony Pettis.
He still fights the same way. Still has the same kind of cardio. He's still just as annoying to finish. You know, he has these great fights against an unranked person instead of Diego Sanchez.
Yeah. Well, against a really, really dangerous and fun opponent in Joaquim Silva. And I felt bad for Silva getting booed like that after having a good fight. But, you know, Austin obviously knew what they were watching. Yeah, it's a shame they couldn't cheer from a little more at the end.
Yeah,
Silva handled it well.
They were an educated crowd. They understood what a legend Clay Guida is and what the significance of that is. And hey, man, 41 years old, he's still doing the damn thing. He should be on UFC 300. Do him versus Jim Miller at UFC 300. That'd be great fun. Good win for Joaquim Silva.
I mean, I hope they don't do it. But yeah, part of me does think that that wouldn't be the least fun thing in the world. I could get behind it. I just feel like give Jim Miller a sexier fight. Give Jim Miller one that's gonna make you go, "Oh shit! I can't believe Jim Miller won that fight. That was crazy."
I understand your logic, but I feel both guys would be conscious at the end of the Jim Miller versus Clay Guida. Both guys are conscious for a post-fight interview. I don't want to book anyone against Jim Miller that hasn't been carried out in a stretcher. Fair logic?
Yeah, MMA gods be good, touch wood, let's not jinx nothing. Like, anyway, great Clay Guida performance, but obviously Silva had that one wrapped up.
Let's move on to, we're not going to touch on this one, but I'll just say big win for Dustin Stoltzfus. I thought he was losing that fight. Nice submission.
Yeah.
Good win. Prelims were crazy though. Let's start with little appetizer headline of Misha Tate just dismantling Julia Avila.
Yeah, sweet Jesus.
I mean, that was Misha Tate, what Misha Tate can be.
Yeah, roll back the years.
Physically looks great, looked motivated, definitely wants to be at 135. And we were talking maybe about retirement. No signs of her retiring. She seems like she is keen to try and have a go. And you got to be honest, looking at the level of competition in that weight class, after that performance, he says she couldn't go on a run. The only girl that I think we'd look at and say that's a motherfucker of a fight is Ketlin Vieira. And maybe they don't book her against Ketlin Vieira. But do I think that she could be a Juliana Pena? I think in principle, yeah. Could she be a Raquel Pennington? I don't know, but I think it's possible. Do I think she beats Holly Holm? Holly Holm is 42 years old. I don't know what Holly Holm is anymore.
Then they should do it last time.
That's
not, fuck it, man. It was fun. Really fun. She absorbed 1 strike in the first round, 10 strikes in the second round. Just the opposite of what I said would happen. The very opposite.
Hey, you can't get everything right. I mean, look at Zach
Glad
Reese.
to be wrong on that one.
Look at Zach Reese. He thought he did everything right. He thought he had a nice, tasty little submission locked in. And then he got slammed on his fucking head. Pretty badly as well.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
I hope he's like that.
So, sorry, Zach Reese, that was the one where he, I think, is more on the back of his head.
Reese was the side.
Are you sure Joe Selecki wasn't
Both
the
were
side?
bad. Joe Selecki was the first one.
I
Pretty
swear
sure,
Joe Selecki was the one where he goes like on the side. And then the
I might
Zach
be
Reese
wrong.
one, because I'm pretty sure Joe Selecki had the armbar. So Drakakos picked him up and slammed him down on the side to get out of the armbar. I'm pretty sure Zach Reese had the triangle locked up.
I remember the other way, but again, smoke a lot of weed. Could very easily be wrong.
Either way, both were fucking crazy. Both are not recommended ways of getting out of those submissions. Both worked and were a lot of fun and happened in a row. Just fucking crazy. I wonder how many people are now changing their game plans. Just like, fuck, what are we doing? 6 weeks of technically breaking the grip. Fuck that. I'm just going to pick the motherfucker up and slam him.
You start to see a few more people like actually like, getting like their shoulders and their elbows like torn up, and then they'll be like, "Yeah, guys, just be smart. Just if you don't know what you're doing, tap."
And it makes it exciting though. It's like every armbar
Yeah.
now. It's just like, is this an armbar or is this a slam?
I think the other one is people are gonna because you do see it more and more. People get a lot smarter about controlling the leg and hooking the leg so they can't get lifted and slammed. But like sometimes if it's in tight, they don't want to give up that tight position. I think sometimes it's worth just hooking the leg and looking to like sweep from there, and just kind of like not looking at it as like giving something up, but trying to use it as a way to kind of transition and move forward. If you can anticipate what they're going to start doing with things like that, rather than like putting yourself in a bad position, look to hook the leg and then to try and like sweep or create space to get up when they like defend. Or I don't know if you can do that when you're hooking the leg, to be honest. Maybe the sweep though. Or just get better at hooking the leg and then securing the position. I'm not a fucking genius at these things. Just saying, maybe like
here's an
hope
idea.
and pray you don't get slammed on the side of your head. Shouldn't be plan A.
Here's an idea.
Yes.
If you are trying to secure an armbar or a triangle and you get lifted up into the air, that is a really good moment to give up on the armbar or triangle and brace your fucking head.
Well, on a triangle, to be honest, you really should be able to like hook the leg and avoid this without surrendering the position. The armbar,
you just got to make that choice.
Like,
just let it go.
I mean, at that point, like, if you get lifted with it, it's probably because you only just kind of started to like lock it in, and you're kind of hoping that they'd be able to break that. But as they lift up, yeah, man, I don't know. I think you just gotta get smarter once like they start to lift. If they're trying to lift, just hook the fucking leg. Just hook the fucking leg. I don't know.
Okay. Slams were not
no
the
one's
only...
watching this, bro. You're not gonna see that catch on. I hope you do though.
True. I hope somebody watches.
People get smarter.
Slams were not the only fun finish on the prelims. Rodolfo, got to get this name correct. Bellato, nasty finish and an excellent fight against Ihor Potieria. I did not see that coming. I thought Potieria was like a hot prospect and he was gonna win this fight. I was wrong on that one. And a huge shout out to Jared Gooden, who looked like he was in all sorts of trouble against Wellington Turman. And then out of nowhere manages to land a shot, hurt Turman back, brutally land ground strikes, and then obviously lock in that rear naked choke.
tapping out Turman is something. I mean, Turman was already beat, but yeah, man, like I was just like that, like hook he catches him with, because end of the first round, I'm like, he's just getting his ass whipped like on the feet. Like, imagine how bad it will go like if he actually gets him like in a bad position on the ground. And then, nope, Turman gets tapped out. Second round, fucking comeback, great fight,
Good win
great
for the
fight.
Night Train. And opening up the
So,
card, big
so I
win.
was just saying, Turman does look good at 170 though. To be fair,
Yeah. I think he just rushed the finish against a dangerous guy, gets hurt back, fight changes. Big win for Veronica Hardy, kicking off the card as well. That's 2 wins on the bounce for her. This one, she was I think both of these fights, she was a big underdog for. And she's got 2 wins, looks technically, mentally very sharp, and that the training with her husband Dan has been paying off. So good for her.
yeah.
That pretty much sums up the UFC breakdown. I don't know if you saw this, Josh. I only watched the highlights afterwards, but did you watch any of the King of Violence title fight in bare knuckle boxing between Mike Perry and Eddie Alvarez?
I did not.
Well, in that case, I can tell you that Mike Perry is now officially, in brackets, unofficially,
Don't say this again.
King of
Don't
Violence
say this again.
after winning by second round doctor stoppage in his fight against Eddie Alvarez. My big issue with bare knuckle boxing, and I said this to you before we start recording, a lot of fights end by cuts around the eye. It's a very common way that these fights end. And it's a very unsatisfying type of knockout. It's unsatisfying in boxing. It's unsatisfying in MMA. It's really unsatisfying in a sport where the longest fight is 10 minutes long. And you still have fights ended 3 minutes in regularly for bad cuts.
Watch it.
Oh, you just cut out there for a second.
Oh, why'd you watch it?
Because it's Mike Perry and Eddie Alvarez, and I know who they are. Which is the whole reason that Bare Knuckle FC signed them. And it works.
They're getting paid, I guess.
There's kind of a morbid curiosity with it. And one thing I would say is the Eddie Alvarez versus Chad Mendes bare knuckle fight. That is fucking awesome. That is a really good fight. It's a messy fight, but it was a lot of fun. That was on the same night as Luke Rockhold losing to Mike Perry. You can't have a sport where like 60% of the wins are via, oh, I caught him once near the eye and now a doctor has to stop the cut. How long did that happen into the fight? About 46 seconds. It just isn't satisfying. But I like Mike Perry, and it's nice to see that he's found his home.
Yeah.
Still would never want to do it, though. That was
Don't seem to read about him getting drunk and into fights anymore. So,
and he's still with his girlfriend / mum of his kid / kids. I don't know.
good for him.
So life is going well for old Mike Perry. It's going a little bit worse for Jamal Hill, who got arrested, apparently, over the holiday period. No details are known. He said that the truth's going to come out, but he's been recommended not to speak about it. I will just say that as a Jamal Hill fan, I hope it's nothing too serious. And
well, it's his brother has pressed charges against him.
Correct.
Family things can be weird. Don't really know anything about. But you see domestic violence charges. You do immediately kind of think the worst. I'm not going to say it's okay to hit anyone, but when someone's like, "Yeah, I hit my brother," I'm like, "Well, it's the one person you're kind of allowed to hit, kind of." Depends what you hit him with.
Also, it's family relationships can be complicated. You add to alcohol, family that don't see each other that often getting together. There's a lot of reasons why not a fight, but just disagreements can break out. And it's very difficult to know. I'll give you an example. I used to bartend with this guy called Pierce. And I remember him telling me a story over like the Christmas period or something, or somebody's birthday. I can't remember which one it was, where he got arrested because his brother got in some fucking spat, was going absolutely crazy, throwing shit all over the place. He basically just had to like kick his brother out the house. Didn't punch him or anything, just kind of grabbed him and, grabbed the back of his shirt, kind of sorted him out and threw him out. And then the rest of the family are all kind of sitting there going, Jesus Christ, what got into such and such? And the police showed up and arrested him. And obviously, when it all got out, like I think the brother ended up dropping the charges like 2 days later or something. But you know what I mean? You never know what the circumstance of these things are. And with Jamal Hill being a fighter, I can imagine it's a little bit easier to imagine somebody maybe trying to play a bit of a victim's card in a 50-50 altercation. Who knows? Who knows? It's a shame though, because I like Jamal Hill and I don't want anything to interrupt that fight with him and Alex Pereira, which I think would be an awesome fight. But it is a misdemeanor, I believe, the level of charge for Jamal Hill. So I don't think he's facing any prison time. I think this is just gonna, be community service or a fine or something like that.
There's plenty of room under the rug that they sweep all of John Jones and Conor McGregor's shit straight under. Just sweep.
Very true, but Conor McGregor is a big money maker.
Yeah, but this is barely a picogram, I think.
Well put.
I'm sure we're good.
Well put. Got other bits of news to touch on. Giga Chikadze is officially out of his fight with Josh Emmett at UFC 296. No one has been booked in to step in as of yet, so we will watch this space. However, a fighter that was knocked out or meant to be fighting this weekend has successfully been replaced by Tim Elliott. So Sumadaji versus Tim Elliott will be happening this weekend.
Yeah, is it Alan Nascimento was supposed to be fighting?
Correct. He's out. Tim Elliott's in. We don't know who replaces Giga Chikadze. It's a weird one because Josh Emmett's he's a beatable guy, but he's a guy that you don't really want to have to fight if you don't have to.
Yeah, like the Giga, it kind of makes sense. And like you need to put some names together to get like a title shot at this stage. For other fighters coming up, it's definitely a guy you want to avoid.
Whatever happens to Calvin Kattar? Is he still recovering from the knee injury, or is he sort of back in the mix?
Not a clue. Not a clue. I don't think there's any real kind of obvious replacements. Because Josh Emmett doesn't scream title eliminator.
No.
I think that five. I think Josh's slot just kind of falls apart.
They've got a lot of fights for 296.
Oh,
not that you want to start
MVP Kevin Holland.
Well, not that you want to get greedy, but that's not the worst card to have one fight fall off. You just don't want to start seeing 2, 3, 4 fights all start falling apart. That's when you have a problem. Yeah. Watch the space. Talking about this weekend's action, we have got a card. It was formed a month ago. I'm pretty sure most of these fights were put together 2 weeks ago. It feels like a rushed card. And I say that in the nicest of ways. But main event, Song Yadong's always fun. Chris Gutierrez didn't look too good when he had his step up against Pedro Munoz, but did get a bounce back win. He's taken on a real, Song Yadong's a prospect that people have been talking about for a long time. And he's 26 now. And it does kind of feel like this is his time. It's a fun main event. It's a main event I think Song Yadong wins pretty comfortably, to be honest. I think this is a good matchup for him.
I think it depends how Chris can go over 5 rounds. Yeah, I expect Song to win. I think across 5 rounds, Gutierrez could be good. Could be a problem for him, but yeah, it's just like you were talking about this before we started recording. Song's been training for these kind of fights for a long time. Chris hasn't. I don't think about it a lot because Song gets his work done inside the
inside the time.
contracted rounds more often than not. Fuck man, when Chris steps up, decisions don't usually go his way. Yeah,
Also,
I know. I think it's gonna be more competitive than it probably will be.
I just feel like Songs, he's more durable, he's more powerful, he's highly aggressive. He's not going to give Chris Gutierrez a lot of space. And I feel like Chris likes having that space that he can kind of explode into with things.
Yeah,
if you take that
we were
away
making
from him,
picks still, this is when you would have talked me out of my pick.
yeah, I feel like this is Song Yadong's moment. Whose moment it is in the co-main event, I do not know. It's Anthony Smith versus Khalil Rountree. Khalil Rountree's in kind of like a weird good spot. He's probably in the best spot of his whole career right now.
When's the last time he lost?
He last lost, I'm looking at it now. He's on at least a 3-fight winning streak. I think he lost to Martin Prechniau in January of 2021. And then since then, he's beat Modestas Bukauskas, Dustin Jacoby, Carl Roberson, and Chris Daukas. Now, not all of those are the biggest names, but that's 4 wins in a row. That's confidence. You've got power. Apparently, he's found the reason why he's fighting, so he's motivated. And he's got that nastiness in him.
Practically, I think he had like a couple wins after the Johnny Walker fight, right?
He did.
And it's like he was kind of having this weird up and down. And he looks like he started to put it together bar one fight. I don't really like it for Lionheart.
I don't like it at all because Anthony Smith scraped to a win against a Ryan Spann that he dominated 2 years earlier. So you can see that there's a drop-off. There is a clear weakness to his legs. He both can't defend leg kicks, can't check them, and his body just can't take them anymore without collapsing. And he's fighting a guy that literally spent 1.5 years in fucking Thailand. One of his signature wins is against Eric Anders, where he tore that man's legs to pieces. This is a horrible matchup for Anthony Smith. He is outgunned in this one. He is technical, far more technical. There is no question about it. He can grapple. But I just feel like he's fading out of this. He's fading away. And the body's going to start letting him down. And his moment has passed him. And he's coming up against a guy that is coming with bad intentions. I hope I am wrong.
Yeah, no, I do think he's going to get his leg chewed up. And that straight comes so fast down the middle. You don't want to be a little slow on your legs at all. I mean, he was at like Gohan Saki. He just starched. He's a scary guy, Khalil.
He's power. And Anthony Smith makes a mistake. That's what I'd say, is that he's very technical, but he tends to make a mistake if he's not able to end the fight reasonably early. And he's very tough, but he's not somebody that's shown that he can take punches terrifically well. He gets rocked. He gets hurt by things. And I think part of that is the fact that he's had 55 professional fights.
This has got to be the hardest hitter he's gone up against.
I don't know, man. He fought Thiago Santos.
I know. I was thinking Santos and Uzdemir. I still think probably Khalil Rountree.
Khalil hits hard. Now, the only thing for Anthony Smith, well, not the only thing, but the thing I'd say that's massively in his favor compared to other fights he's had is like Khalil's ground game is terrible. It's by far his weakest attribute. So if Anthony Smith can get this fight to the ground, there's a lot of reasons to think that he could get a submission. You just got to get through a really powerful guy who is watched a lot of film on you and knows where your weaknesses are. We'll see what happens. We won't go with the rest fight by fight, but just some fights that are going to be fun. The whole main card. Hack Press, Jamie Mullarkey is a fun one. Park Jin-young taking on Andre Muniz. Great to see Park Jin-young getting that kind of level of fight. Sumadeji versus Tim Elliott. Prelims. Tetsuro Taira is fighting.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of how I feel about the whole card. It's like, it's just sort of that kind of level of card. It's Tetsuro Taira's fighting.
The main focus is December 16th. That's the big card. This is just the appetizer in between. We'll be watching it. We hope you guys are going to be watching it. You hope you watch us, like us, subscribe to us. We'll be back next week to give a preview of UFC 296 and recap UFC Fight Night, Song Yadong versus Gutierrez. Until then, guys, have an awesome week ahead. Enjoy the other sport that's on availability and on broadcast as well. And peace out. That was terrible. That was a terrible goodbye. But no one's going to be watching at this point, so it's all fine.